The final column of the project framework is called monitoring mechanisms. But in fact, this is somewhat of a misnomer. What we're really talking about here is data sources. What are the sources of the data for measuring the targets and indicators? Monitoring mechanisms are not the means through which we will report the information, although of course it's useful to include that as well. But more importantly, we need to know where will the information come from that goes into those reports. Finally, as I already mentioned, we do no longer use benefit monitoring and evaluation, so there should be no mention of this in project frameworks. I'd like to add something important on this section of the presentation. I think it's fair to say that when we got into the use of the project frameworks, this was more driven by our internal needs and those of our stakeholders or our shareholders. We needed to know what results were being obtained from our projects. But I think one of the big changes which has come about in recent times is part of this international move towards results-based management, or as we term it in ADB, Managing for Development Results. Under this, we've come to understand much more clearly that we all have a collective responsibility for attaining development results. And in this regard, the collection, analysis and reporting on the results of projects is no more or no less than any responsible government should be doing as a matter of routine. In other words, how can a government make sensible decisions about how to allocate its scarce budget, or to make decisions about which policies to adopt, unless it can describe in some sort of measurable terms what the current situation is, and unless it can set objectives for some desirable future and better situation? And then how does it know if it's made the right budget decisions or the right policy choices unless it keeps progress under monitoring and review in order to take additional or corrective action or to make new investments through its budget process? So this is what I mean when I say that this process of measuring and managing for better results is just part of the core function of government. Now, what is the implication of this for monitoring mechanisms? Well, the point is that in the past, we often attached our monitoring mechanisms to what we call project management units, and these are ad hoc bodies established specifically for the conduct of a project. What the change is now that we're looking at is to much more try and locate the monitoring mechanisms, the data sources, within the core machinery of government, rather than attached to project management units. Through this, we hope to improve the ability of government to measure and manage for achieving better results. So when we talk about monitoring mechanisms, particularly at the goal and purpose level, we're looking much more for sources of data that can come from within the government system. Now, it's fair to say that in many of our developing member countries that their systems for collecting and reporting information on results is quite deficient. But we should use our projects, and we would hope that our partners in development would also use theirs to build up the capability of government in this area. So when I look at monitoring mechanisms, particularly at the goal and purpose level, I'm looking very much to see that these are built in to government management information systems.